Statewide Drive with Kathy Bedford on ABC Victoria.
Intimate partner violence claims the life of almost one woman in Australia every week. Yesterday, we heard that the figures are significantly worse in regional and rural areas. And then we heard from a senior sergeant with the Bendigo Police that they need a dedicated family violence unit because it is the bulk of their policing work. We have been trying to speak to the Minister for Crime Prevention about this for some time, and we are really pleased that he's made himself available today. But just to recap, several months ago we heard about the Be Safe program, specifically designed for victims of family violence in rural areas and winner of a National Crime Prevention Award. But the program is not being funded by the Coalition Government, and when we tried to ask questions about this, we were told this was a matter for the Minister for Women's Affairs, not the Crime Prevention Minister. So just taking you back, let's have a listen to Annie, a victim of physical and mental violence. She was raped and beaten by a former partner. There was an intervention order taken out on him, but Annie still lived with fear until she was given a Be Safe alarm to link her directly with local police who understood the threat that this man posed to her and her daughter.
When you're living through fear, it's a terrifying experience, and the cycles that you go through is not sleeping. You don't go out, you become a recluse in your own home. I didn't want to move away. I didn't want to go into any refuge. And what Be Safe does, you have a pendant. It is with you 24/7. There is also a button, as I call it, the panic button, that's near the telephone. And I also have a mobile phone for when I actually would go out. You can press this, and you know that within a very short time there will be help in the form of the police. Other than what we currently have, which is with 000. When you press that, you obviously have to go through, give your name, address, all of the details. With Be Safe, the minute that you press that button, it is activated. It's a lifeline. There is no other way to describe. From when I actually had that installed, my life returned to normality. I was able to go out and live the usual things that any mother with a daughter does, go to the park, take a child out to birthday parties. I was not living in constant fear of my life. And I also didn't have to sleep with 3 phones that were literally scattered within arm's reach if I did have to phone 000. All of that was removed. I could live a normal, healthy life. I don't believe that there is any value that you can actually put on that as a price. There are real women and children out there that today are living in fear of their lives, and it's a terrifying experience.
A victim of domestic family violence, Annie. And then we spoke with Susie Reid, who's the Chief Executive at Women's Health Goulburn North East. We asked Susie what it would take to keep the Be Safe program running.
$250,000 for up to 100 women over 2 years. But the ridiculous thing is that we've done a cost-benefit analysis, and Be Safe costs a third of what it would cost to move women and children out of their homes. So we are still searching for funding that can roll this out. We only want it for rural areas because rural women suffer differently than the city counterparts, in that, moving house usually means moving town, not moving suburbs. And I know that there is anecdotal evidence from police officers to say that in the small rural areas where graffiti isn't an issue in a small rural town usually, nor is car theft or breaking and entering, that 85% of their work is around family violence, and they say it's just a women's problem.
Susie Reid there from Women's Health Goulburn North East. And joining us now, the Minister for Crime Prevention, Andrew McIntosh. Minister, thank you for joining us finally to respond to these concerns.
Thanks, Kathy.
When we first raised this matter with your office, we were told that we should speak to the Minister for Women's Affairs. Is that how you see family violence? Is it a women's problem?
Well, certainly it's a community problem. I was down at Geelong. We had a regional reference group down in Geelong, representatives from not only the public sector but certainly Victoria Police, and indeed many women that were involved in preventing domestic violence. It is a major concern of the government. The government, of course, across government, is spending something in the order of $50 million this year alone in dealing with the issues of family violence. This is probably one of the most significant contributors to intergenerational violence. and certainly as we are seeking to address these issues, it is a top priority for the government.
Your government, though, recently made much of an announcement for $13.5 million to adopt a zero-tolerance approach to graffiti, and yet you can't find $250,000 to fund a proven scheme, a National Crime Prevention award-winning scheme to make women and children safer in their own homes in rural areas. Why not?
Well, certainly in relation to graffiti, it's certainly a significant problem. People will deal with it differently. It was certainly an election platform. We stood on that issue as well as many other things. There are many other activities, of course, across government, right through to a promise for additional police, better sentencing laws, and these things. And indeed, we're taking a long-term view of trying to prevent crime, and indeed, short-term solutions like police sentencing or otherwise might be important, but all of these things require long-term solutions as well. And certainly amongst those priorities for government is preventing domestic violence and, of course, breaking the cycle of intergenerational violence.
But what we're seeing, I'm sorry, but we're seeing, more police on the streets, which is great, and armed guards at train stations. We see money for graffiti. You're clearly targeting highly visual crime.
Well, certainly, the issues of relation to graffiti are important. It was certainly a key election promise, but also the issue in relation to domestic violence, as I said, and it's probably directly, the Minister directly responsible for the expenditure of the $50 million is the Minister for Women's Affairs, of course, who is Mary Waldridge. Now,
and once again, you point out that the funding for these programs comes under Women's Affairs. It doesn't seem to me that you get that this is a crime and it's predominantly caused by men to women, and that it is the most significant cause of death and injury to women aged 15 to 44. Do you get, as Minister for Crime Prevention, that this is a crime we're talking about?
Look, I understand this is a significant issue. Now, the most important thing about this is that we don't have a bottomless pit. We committed $50 million this financial year in relation to dealing with domestic violence. Now, on top of that, the Commonwealth have chosen to fund this particular project, and indeed to stop that funding. It is a matter that the Commonwealth Government has pulled this particular program. That doesn't mean that we are not rolling out other programs across the state in relation to Mary Waldridge's portfolio responsibility. But it is something we treat very, very seriously. Well, but the most important thing, I share the frustration of people at Be Safe. I share their frustration, but ultimately this was a Commonwealth Government-funded project.
I just don't think the handball in this circumstance is going to wash. Explain to me then.
I don't understand, with all due respect, it's not a handball. We are rolling out our programs in this state at the present time.
Yeah, is crime prevention a state-funded initiative?
Wait a minute, Kathy, just please.
Is crime prevention in Victoria a state issue?
Of course, crime prevention. I am a Minister for Crime Prevention.
Yes. Okay. As Minister for Crime Prevention, then, what initiatives do you have to help women? We have a specific problem here for women in rural and regional communities where we hear that family violence, there is a higher incidence of it. You've heard some of those issues outlined where it's not so easy to move suburbs when you're living with small children. What initiatives do you, as Minister for Crime Prevention, have to make those women feel safer in their homes?
Well, as I said, as Minister for Crime Prevention, I'm in constant discussions with people like Minister Lovell, Minister Waldridge about these sorts of issues. I was certainly down in Geelong in relation to hearing about problems, and certainly the issue of domestic
specific programs. What have you got to make these women feel safe in their homes?
Well, certainly, as I said, that's a matter you have to talk to Minister Waldridge about what programs. But
this is a crime prevention issue, Minister. This is about preventing crimes against these women in their own homes. What initiatives have you got to help?
With all due respect, Kathy, I'm not going to micromanage Mary Waldridge's responsibilities.
So it's a women's problem, is it?
Well, it's not a women's. It's certainly a statewide problem. We all have an interest.
It's a crime against women.
Yes, indeed. And I share the frustration of people at Be Safe, but this was a Commonwealth Government-funded project.
But I'm asking you, as the Minister for Crime Prevention, to outline one program that you have to specifically help this crime being prevented in homes in regional and rural communities. Can you outline any initiative?
Well, certainly. In most police service areas, there is a dedicated officer dealing with the issue of crime prevention. It is a significant problem at Victoria Police, and indeed you mentioned the issues, the amount of time police have to spend in relation to domestic violence. These things do occur, and I understand that in police service areas there are dedicated police officers dealing with this issue, and that's some of the programs that I'm aware of. But But certainly we need to start, dealing with these issues, and the specific programs are in Mary Woolwich's portfolio responsibility.
We did hear earlier in the week from a senior sergeant at Bendigo Police, and they are pleading for a specialised family violence unit there because it takes up much of their work. So they clearly don't have those specific resources. Will you grant them that?
Well, as you know, decisions in relation to police resourcing is an operational decision for the Acting Chief Commissioner of Police and ultimately the Chief Commissioner of Police. The government is not in the business of dedicating police officers contrary to the operational decisions of the Chief Commissioner of Police.
How's the cracking down on graffiti going? Is the $13.5 million you're spending there being effective?
Well, certainly I was down in Bentley about 2 weeks ago, and I was very pleased to see the community corrections officers out with a group of probably something in the order of 10 or 12 young men who were cleaning up large sections of graffiti down in Bentley, and certainly I think this is a major initiative. Do
you appreciate that domestic violence is the leading cause of injury, disability and death in Victorian women aged 15 to 44? Well,
certainly I'm also aware that there are 3 significant drivers of intergenerational crime leading from substance abuse right through to mental illness, but certainly lack of stable housing, including issues relating to domestic violence, are important drivers of these issues.
Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, Kathy.
The Victorian Minister for Crime Prevention, Andrew McIntosh. It's 20 minutes past 4.
Kathy Bedford.